All right, Mike Kelly, Mike Rupp, Shane Kelly with you here. We're going to chat. We're kind of halfway through the first round here, so we thought it'd be a good time to get together and start breaking all these series down and hitting all the big talking points with some information you won't find anywhere else, some viewpoints from our Stanley Cup champion that we know are valuable to hear. So why don't we start with the games that are 3-0 now in these series? A couple of teams that are on the ropes, one that we probably expected, one that maybe we didn't. Why don't we kick things off with a little Florida Tampa Bay? And I don't know about you guys. I thought Florida was going to take the series probably. Tampa's played really well, and it kind of feels like this should be maybe a 2-1 series, not 3-0. But Shane, what are you thinking about the Bolts at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to lose the series. The interesting thing for me with them is they seem like they're at a crossroads almost, right, guys? Like Stammer's coming up. They're getting older. They don't have a lot in the pipeline anymore. They don't really have, those kind of 4 or 5 picks they can move for a Hagel like they've done. Esimont and Janot haven't probably worked out as well as they would have hoped. Not that they're bad players, but, I'm just really curious if this is their stumbling block, like a Panthers team that can just scythe them. And yeah, it's been close games, but they're down 3-0. Where do they go in the off season? Like, and I know we're not talking too much, into the future for a lot of these, but this team in particular, I'm just really curious because to me, it seems like this is the best push they've got. And, looking forward, do they now step back? Like, how do you reload if you're going to lose Stammer?
But that's the thing for me is like that this series, Vasi's been really good, right? Like he's been good. Bob's been better. And then, Stammer's interesting to me because I think he's been their best player in this series. And it's a young series, but I think Stammer's been awesome. And Stammer's been great. And how about his goalie saved a little street hockey in game 3 there? I mean, he's done everything. He had that monster hit on Ekblad too. Like this guy does anything you need, like just captain shit all over the ice all the time. And I love this about him. But if this team loses in round 1, which looks like they're probably going to, you got to change things up. And it feels like it's going to be Stammer. And that's the one guy, like, if at all costs, if you can keep him in any way, like, I don't know what is in Stammer's mind, like what kind of cut he would take or what he would do to stay in Tampa. You got to keep him a part of it, man. I just think there's a lot of captains in this league, more so probably assistant captains, that you're given a letter because you're young, you're a skilled player. We want you to be happy here. This is your team. Like, hey, you're the guy. There's a lot of empty letters in this league, put it that way. Stammer ain't one of them. Like that guy's a fucking leader.
Yeah.
I mean? So, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I don't know what they do here, but their power play has let them down. And that's the one thing for me, guys. Like when you live and die by the power play, that this is what happens, and the power play, there's other teams that power play has let them down as well. That's what's tough. You're like that 5-on-5 play is so important.
Yeah, they're in these games. Like I think it's been pretty tight. You talk about Bob, he's made some crazy saves. I'm disappointed I didn't see one single headline that said armed Bobbery on that save. I thought that was just like a slam dunk headline. Maybe I should be a headline writer and get out of the TV business. Yeah.
But I saw the Bobbery shirt. I was actually on NHL Network, and during break I flipped up social and I saw it came across that shirt Bobbery with him reaching back.
Oh, there you go.
And I literally put it in my cart ready to go, and I didn't order it yet, but I had it as soon as I saw it. I'm like, I got to get this thing. But yeah, no, that's a good one though. But like Bob's been incredible, right?
And so is Vasilevsky. I mean, he's been really good. So you can kind of split hairs who's been better or whatever. I don't think either guy is like really outshone the other by that much. What I would say, like Stamkos, I'm with you. He's for me, like real quick, 3 years, $6.5 million seems pretty good considering his age. I know he scored 40 goals. Would he take that? Maybe. Would Tampa give it? Maybe. I'm with you. You got to try to keep him. But again, we're writing an obit here for a team that you don't count the Tampa Bay Lightning out, right? They're not going to go away easy. No. Winning 4 straight against Florida, I don't think it's going to happen either. But Um, and the other thing I'm always careful about with the first round, with what it is in hockey, teams that are very good, even teams that are capable of winning a Stanley Cup, are going to get eliminated in the first round. This isn't the old days where if you're out in the first or you're swept in the first, you need to change everything. So yeah, you're right though, Shane. There's going to be some flux there in what goes on in the offseason and what this team ends up looking like. But it's been a good series. I just hope it goes on longer because it's been a fun series to watch.
Isn't it funny though? Like I did an interview with Devon Taves a couple weeks ago, and that Colorado was kind of trying to find their game down the stretch. They're struggling in a lot of different ways. And we always hear the narrative like you want to peak at the right time, you want to be playing. And every team that I was on, it was like, hey, we just, even if it's a 3-game win streak, right, to go into the playoffs, like it's something that you can, all right, we're feeling good. And I've been on teams where we've lost 5 of 7 to go in the playoffs, and there's just something that's like, hey, we're not really doing our thing right now. Devontae's brought up an interesting thing. When they won the cup in 22, he said they lost 5 of their last 6. And then they got there, and we know what happened, right? They kind of turned it on, and we're seeing actually some teams turn it on. We'll get to that, I'm sure, but Vegas flipped a switch. Like Florida, the Panthers kind of flipped the switch, boys. Like they weren't playing great down the stretch, and that's what all season long I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to be able to beat the Florida Panthers.
Yep.
And then towards the end of the season, I'm like, actually, I don't know. Are they running out of gas? They don't look like the Florida Panthers with the tenacious forecheck and all those things they do great. And all of a sudden the playoffs start, and I'm like, the boys are back. Like that's exactly what they looked like last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, they caused a ton of problems at 5-on-5 too. I mean, yes, the series has been close, but I think it's a little misleading because Tampa's racked up a ton of zone time, and by what I can look at, haven't done a ton with it. Like average shot distance, it's useful the odd time. I think it's really interesting in this series because at 5-on-5, Tampa's average shot distance is like 48 feet from the net. Florida's 40. They've done a really good job, Florida, of keeping everything Tampa's doing at 5-on-5 to the outside. And that, to me, more than anything, is kind of the thing that I think is going to make this series end pretty quick. Is that, yeah, Bob's had some incredible saves, but by and large, in between those, he hasn't had to face a lot of high-quality scoring chances off of, the minute and a half in the zone that Tampa is able to accumulate at a time. So like, I mean, sure, it's a close series, but I don't think this Tampa group has enough to win more than one game.
Rupper, you probably played in games where you win 3-2, but you knew for 20 minutes you weren't losing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. And I think a big indicator of that's like what Shane, what you're talking about right there. Like when I'm watching yesterday's game, so game 3, there was a number of shifts where Tampa's straight legging it. They're long shifts. Like that's what they do. And you even talk about that fourth line, putting up Posto in there with Lorenz and who am I missing? And Cousins. They were in there just holding on to pucks, dragging out shifts. And you get tired group. A couple goals were scored because the guys are out there for a minute and a half. Like that's Florida Panther hockey. And Tampa hasn't been able to do that necessarily, right? Like they haven't necessarily had that type. Maybe they aren't even that type of team. But Florida is, and they're back to doing it, man. That's why all of a sudden now I'm like, I don't know. Are the Panthers the team to beat in the East now? It kind of feels like they are.
Yeah, maybe the team to beat in general.
Where have you been?
All right, well, let's keep the train rolling here. We got another 3-0. I think this one we kind of expected. Our model, Sport Logic, when we did our previews on NHL Network, we had Carolina in 5. It might go that way because, like the Islanders, man, I give them credit. They're like the little kid that is playing with the bigger kids and he's scrappy and you love him, but you're like, you just aren't quite at that other level, right? Like I thought that was game 3 was their best game. They didn't get outshot attempted 100 and whatever, 20 to 30. That's a win. In fact, they outshot Carolina, and shots from the inner slot were 6-1 for the Islanders. Like that's as good as you can get against a team like Carolina in the way they play. And just Sorokin, I don't know. I want to get your guys' opinion. I thought it was a good move to go back to him, not because Varley was a problem, but because you just needed something different, maybe to jolt the group. He didn't last long. It's obviously Varley's net now. But my takeaway through 3 games is, look, the better team's winning. It'll end in probably 4 or 5. But man, I give this Islander team a lot of credit. Like they're digging in and they're doing their damnedest. You can tell they're just a little frustrated.
I think that's like the NHL playoffs was so frustrating. You could sit there and play the what if game. And you do a lot of times as a player, I think, when you have overtime games. Sometimes you have a series that's 2-3 overtime games, and maybe you lose those. You're like, man, if we could have just, that's a bounce at any time in regulation and in overtime like that. That game feels like it can go either way anytime you have an overtime game. But I would even say this in the Islanders series. Remember last year when the Florida Panthers swept Carolina and Rod Brindamore said, and I agree, Carolina dominated every single game. But that's Carolina. That's what we've learned with them. But they got swept. So, like, we did pretty much everything we wanted to do to a T, and we got swept. Like, you don't say that too often. In this series, I won't say it to that degree. Would you guys be surprised? Like, really, would you be surprised? Yes, the better team. The one team's way better than the other team in a bunch of different facets. But if it was 3-0 Islanders right now, would you be surprised the way that these games have gone, right? Like, 1 could have gone either way. 3, like you mentioned, probably should have gone Islanders' way. And in the one game that the Islanders had 0 chance of, and it was a completely lopsided game, they were up 3-0 in it. So, like, that shows you the margins in the playoffs, man. It's cruel. It's cruel, but here we are, and I agree with you. Maybe they squeak out a game. I don't know if they get a game out of this. I think that's a plus at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Rupper, at the start of the series, we, Sport Logic, everybody under the sun publishes kind of a probability model. And I think most people had it like what, Mike 75 or Mike Kelly, 75-25 Carolina Islanders.
Yeah, we had 76 and it was our highest. It was our biggest gap, our biggest favorite.
I always ask people, like, would you get on an airplane if 25% of the time you weren't going to survive? No, like 25 is not 0. There's some chance that they win this series. To your point, Mike, the thing is that just the accumulation of bounces that have to go your way, it's hard. What I've been curious is, would Carolina play kind of revert to type, play super safe, dump the puck in a ton, go back to what they've done successfully forever? No. To me, it sounds cruel to say, but it almost feels like they're practicing against the Islanders, kind of a way to play, and that if things really got hairy, they'd probably go back to what worked for them for so long. But they're 13th out of 16 teams in the playoffs for use of the dump in to gain the zone. So, that's a sea change from the last couple of years in the playoffs.
Wait. Say that again. Would you say 13 what?
So, like, the ways you can enter the zone, right? You can pass the puck in, you can carry it in broadly, and you can dump it in. Every year that we have data, and probably, Mike, you too, it's been Carolina 1 or 2 for use of the dump in to gain the zone. Right now in the playoffs, they're 13th out of 16
And we talked
teams.
about that in our preview for the series, that for the last kind of 20, 25 games, Carolina's trended into more of a possession entry rush. Islanders are going to jam you up too, like more than most teams, so it's going to be tougher too. But yeah, that's something Carolina's been doing more.
That's what I was curious about. Like, if Islanders play the way they're going to, arguably dumping it in against them is the way to go, because it's a lot easier to gain the zone. There's less risk. You don't give up much. But Carolina said, screw you. We're gonna practice this style, and it feels a little like a boxer, in the early rounds when he knows he's got somebody, just like, we'll get some time in the ring and just get some more reps under our belt. That's kind of how this series has felt to me.
Yeah. Well, let's see how it goes when they likely potentially play the Rangers in the next series, who are going to present a few more problems, because the Rangers got a 2-0 lead over Washington. This one, Charlie Lindgren, I love him. Like, he's doing his best, right? And this is kind of what got the Capitals into the playoffs in the first place, is that guy covered up warts, big ones. And this one could roll 4 games. Like, I just don't think that the Caps have really a snowball's chance here. But the Rangers also, looking pretty good, scoring some 5-on-5 goals. Ooh, the Rangers may not just be goaltending and special teams. Like I've said it before, I think they are a real contender and could be a real problem potentially for Carolina. We'll find out. Rupper, what do you notice through a couple games?
They've been okay. Washington in these games. Like I was at game 2, and the game was like a low event game, right? Like I didn't like
Mhm.
Igor wasn't challenged very much. I don't think Charlie Lindgren was overly challenged either. Just kind of like a meh kind of game. It was, I mean, there was exciting at MSG, but lots of penalties in the game, and that's been something that should, it's whatever way you want to look at it. Like this is how I look at it with that. Lots of penalties should favor the Rangers because they're special teams, right?
Yep.
But I also think as long as you can, and that's a tall task, if you can kill the Rangers power play, slow the game down with penalties, chop the game up, get no flow to it, that should help Washington, right? And that's kind of giving them I gave them, I thought, a chance in that game. But listen, man, like I said it before with letters, and this is going to come across as a very rude thing to say about the best goal scorer
Yes.
and what will be the best goal scorer in NHL history. But when we're talking about letters and dishing out letters,
I can't wait to pile on here.
Ovi should not have a C on his jersey. I'm sorry. Like, and what he does out there, and I get it. He will be. I've nothing. He is the best goal scorer that I've ever seen in my entire life, and he'll go down and he'll beat this Gretzky record. I love what he does with scoring goals, but if he's not scoring goals, he's contributing nothing. And I think in that game, the power play, the shorthanded goal, remember the beautiful
Yep.
passing play for Keandre Miller. Ovi turns the puck over and doesn't give a care about coming back and doing anything else. And for me, it's like this team's built a certain way. And Spencer Carberry said, we need Ovi to be better, or we need Ovi to perform. And you can also look at it and say, all right, goal scoring is what he does. But when you're not goal scoring, what are you doing? And I can emphatically say he's doing nothing if he's not scoring goals. And on the other side, look at Steven Stamkos, and we talked about him. That guy's running through bodies. That guy's blocking shots. He's playing goal on an empty net. Like, what do you need? And that's my thing. And not to pile on Ovi, but I think that they need him in the series in some way, shape, or form. I don't think they're getting him.
What do you got? Like, what do they do here, Mike? I'm kind of flummoxed, and I feel bad piling directly on Ovi again right away. So let's get you in
Well,
between, and then I'll go back at him.
all I'll say about Ovechkin is like you're right. If he's not scoring goals, what's he doing? And the answer is nothing because, and this is not new. Like at Ovi's best, he was okay off the puck and contributing in other ways and impacting the game in other ways defensively. The last few years, there's been basically no impact. And so that's just what it is, though. Like if you're expecting Ovechkin now, oh, you're not scoring, you got to be doing all this other things. It's not something he's been doing for years. He's older, and I'm not going to say it's because of a will thing at all. Like I'm not going to question that with him. It's just not who he is as a player. So yeah, if Ovechkin goes out and scores 2 goals in the next game and they win, it's great. That's what he's there to do.
Yeah.
Don't expect
But
anything else.
he's never, and this is the thing, is like he's never had to learn any other aspect of the game because his goal scoring was so dominant. We've never seen a guy like this before. He was so dominant that he didn't have to develop other areas of his game. So when that dominant factor that he has above everybody else trails off a little bit, he doesn't have a crutch. And I think we're seeing that right now. And I think that that's why this was a slow season for him, because he lost his mojo because he's not scoring. And I think he knows he's not really doing anything out there.
There's other guys on the team. I was gonna go at him again, but you know what? There's other guys on the team too, like Max Pacioretty.
Yeah.
What has he done anything? Again, coming off an injury, but still, he's on I think it's $6 million a year still, right? Is a contract? That's a first, second line ish type number. Nothing. They've got Carlson, who might be equally finished. He's way below 50% XG. He's given up the blue line more than almost any
He's
defenseman.
playing 87 minutes a night too forever.
Yeah,
Guy might
like
be
this.
tired.
Yeah, this team. Part of I think the story is they just don't have any depth whatsoever. Like they've got. I don't understand how they're in the playoffs, first of all, but they are here through some miracle. if you believe in God, this would be a really good piece of evidence for it. But like, they are here, and you look up and down this lineup, and like, who is going to be a first line NHL player in the next 3 years from this group?
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of pieces that showed up this year and did a lot of great things. Like I like,
Strome.
yeah, but I agree with what you're saying. Like Connor McMichael's been nice. I think Dylan Strome has taken on this has been his best season. I think, but to your point, like with all those storylines, it almost feels like a rebuild. But they're still here because Ovi's chasing the record, and they feel like they should, and they got in by kind of default this year. But I guess the nature of it that we're seeing we're seeing the difference here between the President's Trophy team and a team that kind of got in because some other teams left the door open.
Yeah, 100%. So they're gonna be in tough to try to get this thing 2-1, but it'll be at home. We'll see what happens. Maybe it gives the group a jolt. We got another interesting one here in terms of a series that is tied 1-1, Vancouver-Nashville. I want to touch on this one. Thatcher Demko goes out. That's huge, obviously. Preds blocked every shot that came their way. That was wild, just watching that shot blocking clinic they put on. Like, you talk about a defensive.
Hey, let me ask you guys this though. I don't mean to cut you off, but what do you guys make of shot blocking? Because I think that like it tells me a few things. You got some balls, right? They're also a team, if I'm not mistaken, that their goaltending lets in a lot of goals via screen. So if you're not blocking, the puck's probably got a good chance going because you're screening your goaltender. But like if you're blocking and being asked to block that much, you're not playing with the puck. I played on John Tortorella teams. We led the league in block shots. We spent a hell of a lot of time in our own defensive zone. Like, I don't know. Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know what to make of it.
I don't know who said it. Somebody said this. I thought it was a good analogy. It's like having a rat problem. It's like it's preferable to kill the rat, but ideally you don't want to have to be killing rats, right? If you're blocking a ton of shots, you know the puck, all that stuff. At the same time, this is like the possession argument that people make of when kind of analytics and this all blew up of puck possession. We want players to possess the puck. We want 4 skill lines. We always have the puck. You cannot have the puck enough that having the puck is all that matters. You cannot, conversely, not have to block shots because you have it so much. What's that?
That the Toronto Maple Leafs beg to differ.
Well, they beg to win playoff series too. So this is the point.
That was an alley-oop. I was hoping that you would slam that one home.
Put that one right on a tee right here. Yeah. So, anyways, it's like you don't want to have to be doing it, but you have to do it sometimes, right? And they did it. So, I think that what interesting storyline out of this series too is a big one in Vancouver, which is a crazy hockey market. If you've ever lived there or know the city, they love the Canucks and passionate group. Elias Pettersson. What is going on with Elias Pettersson? This guy, we saw what he could do at the start of the year. He kind of cooled a bit, and he even made a comment referencing kind of like, maybe getting too caught up in the playoffs and the building and just wanting it too much. Like, that's a great thing to hear, I think, because he's a passionate guy and a hard worker. All these things, great character, all of it. But man, he has not been like 11 shot attempts through 2 games. 2 on net, none from the house. What about, he can be a Selke-ish type guy. He's so good defensively. 4 defensive plays, which is block shots, block passes, stick checks, all these things wrapped into one in 2 games. Just hasn't been around it. And we saw obviously the missed chance that was kind of an open net and the reaction. And I don't know, like Rupper, I want to get your take on this, because when you hear comments like that of why maybe there's struggles happening, maybe going on the road's a good thing for him, right? Getting out of your own barn and getting away from Vancouver. Game 3 in Nashville is where we'll see him kind of come out of it a little bit.
And I don't have much to say on this because he answered something for me where I'm not concerned, is he took full ownership of not being good enough.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, at the end of the day, he's world class. We all know this, right? Like, this guy, he's got that ability. He can overtake a series. He could do it a bunch of different ways, right? He could do it defensively and offensively. He took ownership, and I've seen him and Mark Stone so far in this playoffs really stepped up at different junctures. And Mark Stone, the big thing in game 1 was his comeback, right? Like his first game back, that whole storyline. and him scoring that goal, but he had a bad turnover, and it's very unlike Mark Stone. And what's he do? You don't want to talk about the goal and how great it feels to be back in the lineup. He's like, that's on me. I got to be better.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson did the same. That's why I'm not concerned with them, because they've got, to me, that was something that I learned about Elias Pettersson. He's a good leader. Like, he comes out here and he's taking it right on the chin. This is on me. This is I'll be better. And I expect him to be lights out the rest of the way. And I'll just leave it at that. Like, I don't have anything else to say. I think Vancouver still finds a way to win this series, but I'm expecting him to come back in a big way because he called himself out to the carpet, and I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, and the numbers back it up. I mean, the team's like 52% expected goals for the series at 5-on-5, and we have them at 38%. That's wild. They've got a bunch of guys who have been leaking chances against this Nashville team, but he better find it quick. Like, his game, his zone entries are down. His passes into the slot are down, at least in our data. So it's, he can call himself out to the carpet, but I also wonder, is Nashville doing something here that, there's just so much hockey going on. Like, I don't know about you, Mike, but I don't have time to kind of delve into any one of these series with a fine-tooth comb. I'm really curious, has Nashville, prioritized denying him the puck over all else, and he's struggling with all the extra attention?
They present problems. I think it's more on him. I thought his game 2 was better though, right? And game 1, not very good clearly, but I think he's going to be fine too. And I don't think the Predators are presenting any unique issue that Vancouver can't deal with, or Elias Pettersson can't deal with. I think that's letting them off the hook, to be honest, from what I've looked at. So, I think they'll be fine too. Like Rupp said, it's going to be a good series. Like, we had this one pretty close in our model. And for a series to be close, each team has to win a few games. I think that's what's going to happen.
What did you guys have? You guys made comments about it before when we were talking. What did you guys have as far as Vancouver's stingy defense? And that's one thing when you look at their, if you look at their D setup, Quinn, that's a Norris guy for me. We talked about that. He's gotten, nice vibes on that top pair with Roenick. And then after that, I mean, it's a lot of kind of in their career, not guys who'd be they seem slotted inappropriately, but there it looks really good and they play a role, right? And they do a good job of kind of keeping. I feel like when Vancouver's at their best, they're keeping bodies away from their net, right? And they got big D core.
Yeah,
it kind of does that. I think they got to lean into that more with Casey DeSmith being in there, right? Thatcher Demko is clearly a big miss. But, I mean, that's something that I don't know what you guys have on that, but I feel like they're a big D that can keep bodies away from their net, and it should serve them well.
100%. Since the trade deadline, you could argue they were the best defensive team in the league. It's certainly one of them. And for doing just that, inner slot shots, nope. Rush chances, nope. Defending the blue line, all that stuff. The size of the guys helps for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that surprised me is that I think they've let Nashville off the hook a little bit at the blue line. To your point, Mike, they were one of the best teams and with zone denials for a long time. They've been okay. Like, everybody in these playoffs is good, right? Maybe aside from Washington, you don't get into the playoffs without having some
Novi's fault.
Yeah. So, you're going against 4 lines of people who can transport the puck for the most part, but we have them 4th in terms of, or I guess you would say 12th in terms of zone entry denial rate. Like, that's not great for who they've got back there, especially since they're not, aside from that first pairing. I love Carson Soucy as a player. He's not an offensive superstar. So if you're not an offensive superstar, you better make the blue line, an equivalent of the Berlin Wall kind of thing. So that would be one thing you might look at as they get against some of these better teams here. And if they make it through to the second round, that could cause some problems. Yeah.
Well, let's go on to Colorado and Winnipeg. We talked about this maybe being like the most exciting series. I think we might have hit the nail on the head with that one. These have been 2 great games. The first one was nuts. Guys, I'm worried about Winnipeg. I know the series is 1-1. It's going back to Colorado. Colorado really owned the first game. Like, if Georgiev could have just given them literally another save, they probably should have won that game. But a couple things stand out to me here, and Rupper will get your thoughts here. I'll kick it over to Shane after. Number one, Colorado, they presented problems for Winnipeg, like the speed and getting into the zone. Rick Bowness talked about it after the first game. And the bigger issue is when they're in the zone. Like they are forechecking the crap out of the Jets successfully. They are cycling the puck effectively against them. Throw a couple numbers at you. Forecheck chances are 13-4 Colorado. Rebound chances are 9-2 Colorado. They're playing that kind of like heavy low game, and the cycle game they have is elite, right? So that's been a problem. And the other thing is, who would have thought after 2 games, we're talking about Connor Hellebuck giving up 10 goals? And that's a problem.
Yeah.
5 of those goals off screens, right? Like I built a model that I kind of use as a proxy for traffic. So I look at rebounds, deflections, screenshots, put that all into one bin, and then take the rest of them into another one. Hellebuck is fighting it with these kind of traffic shots. So Rupper, my thoughts basically through 2 games are Colorado's kind of carried both of them for the most part. Now they're going back to Colorado, and they've been giving Connor Hellebuck real problems to deal with in terms of just being around the front of the net and disrupting them.
Yeah, I mean that's the one thing that I know that Georgiev was taking up a lot of the air in the room, right? It's I don't think people really overly talked about Hellebuck and what he's had to deal with and how it's turned out. I don't know. So part of me feels like Colorado's going to get their goals. Like they're going to score. Like that's why they're so much of a content. They're my favorites, I guess I would say, to win the cup. That doesn't mean that I think they will win the cup. I mean, they are the best built team, and when they have any kind of goaltending or any kind of defensive conscience at all, they're going to score enough goals to overset that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I think part of me sitting there like they're going to score, but it is surprising with the guy who arguably will win the Vezina is let up 10. And so I don't know, but to your point on the forechecking though, and the way they've gotten in there, I mean that's why I love the way they're built. That's why you went out, like they have situational guys, they have specialty players.
Here comes the Rupper, Trennan, and
Oh,
Duhaime breakdown. All your boys.
Yeah,
all your boys. You're right though.
It is though. I mean, Miles Wood is the most straight line skater in the National Hockey League. We know that he can skate. He's been clocked at skating as fast as Connor McDavid. Big difference in skating ability laterally or even with the puck on your stick. But if you're just talking about straightaway speed, that guy is north.
Yeah.
Duhaime, physical. Trennan, physical. Parise gets in there and he's going to whack you and finish you. I mean, they've got Ross Colton, like I love that pickup when they ended up getting him, right? Like, so they've got the guys. They're going to make life miserable for your defense. And up to this point, they're doing that. And we'll see if Winnipeg's able to kind of give themselves and catch a breath a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel bad for the Jets a little bit through 2 games because they just can't get out of the zone. And it's great when you've got a system that can smother the other team, but you need to be able to leave your zone to smother the other team. Like, I don't know what your numbers have, but we have the Avs first in the league, per 60, obviously, because some teams have played 2 games, some teams have played 3, in terms of cycle shots, in terms of forecheck shots, in terms of shots off the rush. Like they're just caving in the Jets because the Jets can't get set up. The Jets, I think, are first or second in terms of time in the D zone at 5-on-5. Like they've been absolutely smothered by this Avalanche team. I think it's an old Lord of the Rings call out, like the way is shut and we can't get out or something when they're stuck inside that mountain. That to me is what this Jets team feels like. They're just they seem a little backed into a corner. And but for Georgiev, I think this would be a 2-0 series. I've been surprised. I'll hold my hand up and say I was wrong on this one so far. The Jets might take it because, to your point, they've got maybe the best goalie in the league in Hellebuck, but he's got to find his game for that to even become a possibility. So, I'm sorry to say it if I'm a Jets fan, but it's looking a lot different than I expected.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for the Lord of the Rings quote as well. That's going to go a long way in proving to people that analytics guys aren't big nerds. So that's good.
Hey, if you don't like Lord of the Rings, then I don't care what
Hey, I never
analytics.
seen it, dude. I never seen any
Dude,
of them.
my friend took me to a
What the
Lord of
hell
the
is
Rings
wrong
movie
with you?
once.
I
I was in the movie theater for like 3 hours. I'm like, when is this over? This is the longest
There's a
movie.
I
wrong
think
And
that's the thing, though. Aren't they all like over 3 hours? I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that I'm like, I don't know.
Sunday afternoon, hungover, Lord of the Rings. There's nothing beats it.
maybe football, but whatever floats your boat. Um,
You can watch
Shane's on a
both. That's why we
9-hour
have
Lord of the
multiple
Rings
television.
bender on Sunday
Yeah.
afternoons.
I was
Yeah.
watching the draft. Was anybody on this call other than me or on this podcast or whatever the hell this is? Who else watched the draft last night?
I did not.
Well, so I got you. Lord of the Rings and NFL fandom. So
Yeah. Well, we'll let you off the hook on the second one anyways, but yeah, I think I'm surprised too. I didn't think the Jets would be where they are, but it's 1-1. Hellebuck can have himself a game. Like, it's not over by any stretch, but I'm not a big flips switcher. I don't think teams can just turn it on generally. And Colorado looks like they have. Vegas looks like they have. Like you were saying earlier, Rupper, it's impressive to see what some of these teams are doing. LA kind of flipped a bit of a switch in game 2. I thought they had a pretty good game, all things considered. And now they've tied that series up at 1. And it looked like after game 1, like, how are you going to stop Edmonton? The power play, the speed, all of it, right? Something that stood out to me is you talk about like dump-ins and entries and all those things. LA, what I noticed is, first of all, Edmonton dumped the puck in a lot more. Game 1, it was less than 40% of the time at 5-on-5. Game 2, it was over 60% of the time at 5-on-5. That's a big difference. And I'm watching these entries, and LA they got the 1-3-1, and it works well enough when it works. Their D was up more, and they were pressuring at and in front of the blue line. And part of that's because they had good tracking pressure from the forwards too. But I thought their gaps were tighter, and it gave Edmonton some more problems to deal with. Allowed them to hang around in the game and ultimately win in an overtime on a controlled breakout, which I thought was such a great play with Kopitar kind of sneaking in off the weak side, and they get the goal. So yeah, we got kind of a series there now, and I think Edmonton's still favorites. But the thing that makes me nervous, if I'm an Edmonton fan, talked about it all year. Stuart Skinner was great for big chunks of the year. He was not good for some other chunks, and in the playoffs last year, he was not very good. And I was like, this Edmonton team seems bulletproof, but I'm still not sold on Skinner. And here we sit now, almost halfway through the first round. They're getting ready for game 3. Last in the NHL playoffs in slot save percentage, last in save percentage off the rush. And once again, I'm saying Edmonton, this cup contender, what if this guy can't do it? Because they don't have a plan B still.
Guys, let me ask you this. Do you guys have life insurance policies?
Sure, I think taking one out.
I hope
so. Right? Like, in theory, I think we're all consider ourselves to be healthy. I'm a little older than you guys, but I don't really envision something happening here. Thank God, a little knock on wood there. But I don't. You get that just to be safe, just to cover your bases and cover your everything. Why did Edmonton? This baffles me still, because we're 2 games in to this series. What are we? We're 2 games in the Colorado series. You talk about these 2 teams, Edmonton and Colorado, who've had Stanley Cup aspirations for years now. Goaltending has been a question mark for years now. And you go into this deadline and you don't get an insurance policy in the goaltending position. Like, that blows my mind. And that's no knock. I think Stuart Skinner is a good goalie. I think he should play. He should be the guy. He's shown enough to have confidence in him.
Has he?
I mean, okay, maybe I'm being a little generous there, but from talking to people in Edmonton, they feel pretty confident in him, or they did when they're winning 18 games.
Well, yeah, I mean, anybody
you know
who's
what I'm
on a
saying?
heater, I'll feel
But
confident.
at some point here, when you are a team like that, why the hell did you not go out and get another option? Or even from Colorado's standpoint, you've got, you've got Eustace, what's his name? Annanen? Is that his name? Eustace.
Yeah,
he's your backup goalie. You have 0 experience, so it's Georgiev or bust. I mean, it's basically Stuart Skinner or bust, and Calvin Pickard's been good. But what are we doing? So if that's the case and you're so confident in that, then after 2 games, you shouldn't be questioning your goaltending. You should be, nope, this is our guy. We believe in him. We think he's the guy. You knew it was going to come up at some point. I didn't think it was going to happen this early. But here we are. Stuart Skinner's in front of the media there, and he's got to like sit there and be like, I still believe in myself. Bud, you had one off game. Like, come on, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this much before the series, but I kind of thought that LA had a chance because they throw so many pucks at the net, and the Oilers' goaltending is not very good at stopping that part of the game. So, yeah, like I don't know, man. I'm with you guys. I don't understand it. I didn't. Here's the thing: analytics and goaltending don't mix. Mike, Kelly, you and I have talked about it a number of times. Like you, outside of 5 guys, gun to my head, I am not confident predicting who's going to be any good next year based on this year's stuff, or who's going to,
You're talking about goaltending.
yeah, goaltending, like, or who's bad, who's going to suddenly turn into a Vezina Trophy candidate. Like I don't know. I'll throw my hands up, but you can't have one question mark be the only thing like foundationally at the goaltending level holding your team up, especially when you're coming in and you're going to play a team like LA that is going to do the one thing that's probably your kryptonite, which is chuck a ton of pucks at the net, and you just know that he's going to give up some goals that he shouldn't give up, and you can see it deflate the team on the bench when it happens. Again, yeah, we might not be able to predict, very well who's going to do well, but that doesn't mean you can just then ignore the position and say screw it. And that goes for the Avalanche too. Like I think in both cases, get 3 guys, get 4, get as many as you can. And for the love of God, don't sign anybody to a 5-year, $25 million deal off the back of like 3 good months.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, good.
Are you pointing that comment in the direction of the nation's capital here in Canada?
I think you could point that comment at like a third of the league at various points in the last couple of years.
Well, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I think you're right. But then I could say to you, okay, don't give these guys that money. And Colorado, who you brought up, they won a Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper. What did Darcy Kemper do of any meaning before or after winning that Stanley Cup with Colorado? Good goalie, fine goalie. And all he ever was in that cup run was good. He didn't have to be great because Colorado was very quietly an elite defensive team. And I give Kemper credit in their closeout game. He was awesome in that game where they won the Stanley Cup. He was awesome. But Stuart Skinner can be awesome in a game, and so can any number of guys. And Rupper, I think to answer your question the best I can, you talk about Edmonton. Why don't they go out and throw names? A Jake Allen, a veteran guy, just someone to be a support system if Skinner falters. Dollar in, dollar out, right? That's where the Oilers are at. Doesn't mean you can't get creative, or maybe you should get creative. But there's the cap.
Darnell Nurse.
Well, yeah, you can go back now to that summer with
but that's part of the problem.
Defensemen, but
these are all opportunity cost discussions. I don't feel like did people consider that?
Yeah, I mean, but that's like, here's the thing with it. I want to go back to the Colorado thing with Kemper, and you're right. Kemper, he had some moments in the playoffs where he needed to make some big saves, and he did. But he was for the most part just good. But over the last number of years, I'm trying to think of. I know 2 teams off the top of my head. Trying to think if I'm missing anybody. But in the playoffs, I think every once in a while you get a team that does something with stylistic approach to it. They do something and they're ahead of the curve with the rest of the league. I think back to the 16-17 Penguins. That's a team that stands out to me that was – every team's fast now. But that team was like the new fast, right? Like they played fast. They played quick. They were like tenacious on pucks, hounding pucks all over the ice. And I don't think anybody really had an answer for that for those 2 years. People adjusted. Pittsburgh got older. Pittsburgh lost some of that. And, that's Pittsburgh. We'll park them. But they won the cup because they did something different. When Colorado won in 22, that was a foreign team that I have seen before. Like their possession game, and this is just the eye test, right? Like, I mean, you guys might have numbers to be like, actually, Rupper, it was similar to what some teams are doing now. But at that time, when I watched that game, they were playing a style that I haven't seen. And I don't know if they played any good defense at all back then, but they didn't have to because they had the puck all the time. And
Yep.
we'd watch games where it's like shot, recovery, up to the point, D to D, shot, recovery, bang. But it's just it was such unbelievable hockey to watch. And they did it that year. And now everybody's caught up. Everyone's adjusted. Everyone's done these things. Now they're a team, like when I think of Edmonton, like, Edmonton's a team that they're not that. You know what I mean? Like they've got to be creative in the ways they win sometimes. And I think sometimes they struggle with that.
Yeah, that Colorado team, like you and I were there at the Cup final in Denver, Rupper. There was it was one of, if not the most dominant Cup run wins playoffs in our lifetimes. Really,
Yeah.
like they beat the crap out of teams. They didn't lose a lot of games. I think they lost 4 games all playoffs, and they beat teams down. So that's true. And look, this is the yin and the yang of it all, right? Like, you don't want to sign the mid-range goalie to any kind of term, but then you need a goalie in game 3, and maybe he's not there. These are, and I've said this forever. Goaltending is important. It's more important to some teams than others, right? And there are teams that need a great goalie to have a chance. Edmonton's not one of them. Colorado's not one of them. They can't have bad goaltending. Nobody can overcome that, right? So that's.
But to Shane's point, I think I don't want to put words in your mouth. The big thing for me, I always say, project and protect. That's your job, right? In the National Hockey League, if you're a GM and whatever, you project what a player is going to be, and then you protect them as quickly as you can so you can keep their costs down. And you got to be right on some of these. But some of the decisions they've made have brought them to this point where they can't get an insurance policy on a team that they have to win a Stanley Cup, and they can't do that.
Oh, and it's hard because I don't like they're good people, but like, man, is this one of the worst assembled rosters that I've ever seen? Like, just no picks outside of the first round, really, no contributors found on kind of like 1-year deals for $900,000. Like, I just how do you? It's hard, man. But geez, you guys,
they might win the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah, and they're my pick to win the Cup because they've got 2 of the best, maybe 5 players in the league. But like, they're going to win in spite of the roster build if they do it.
All right, let's move it along. We got a couple more we want to hit on here before we get going. Maybe Boston, Toronto.
All right.
This thing's gotten a little bit interesting. So, Rupper, we can roundtable this one a little bit, obviously, but I want the goalies getting guys' heads, because that's what some of the talk has been in this series. And this goes back to regular season, even where the Leafs just can't beat Swayman. The goalies getting guys' heads.
Yeah, 100% they do.
Is Swayman in their heads?
Yeah, I think he is. I remember thinking to myself, like, so I did this little experiment one night when, I retired in 2014-15 season, and I don't remember what exactly happened, but Carey Price was being Carey Price. And everybody starts talking about the Carey Price factor. And so I reached out to 3 former teammates at that time. They were all north of 30 goal scorers pretty much every year. And I said, hey, I'm just going to be honest with you, because I don't remember what the situation was. It was like in a shootout. And guys are coming in. They're doing very like unorthodox, unlike what they would normally do. And I'm like, why? What? Like, that's not what, a lot of guys, like, their moves. They're going to go down, they're going to do this. And all of a sudden they go against Carey Price. They're not doing that. They're trying something else. And I remember I reached out to these 3 guys. And I said, is the Carey Price factor real? And all 3 of them emphatically said, absolutely. I go, what do you mean? Like, you're an elite goal scorer in the league. Like, why would you change what you're doing? They're like, because he's unbeatable at times. And when goalies get hot, I think you second guess. You don't necessarily second guess yourself. You're second guessing your options, right? Instead of just making it natural and flow, I think you double clutch or you're looking to do certain things. I played remember that Montreal run in the 9-10 season. Yeah. I played against Jaro Halak in the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, he was in our heads. I remember Dan Bilesma came up to us before Game 7 in Pittsburgh, and he said, hey, he wanted to present to us like we're doing a lot of good things. He presented us grade A scoring chances through the series. And there was like 94 to like 19. We were out chancing them. But here we are in a Game 7. Guess what? We lost. because Yara Halak was incredible, and we started like, yeah, we were a mess. So yeah, I think it is a real thing. I think Jeremy Swayman is in the head of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I think an indicator of it is when Max Domi goes and shoves him. You don't shove a goalie like that if he's not in your head. And I like that Max Domi
That was
did
a
it.
baller move by Max Domi, though. Like, who
It
does
was
that?
a gutsy play, because what happens if that
Yeah,
gets
you know you're
called?
going to get filled.
Yeah, I mean, so, but I like the fact that he's testing that. And I like it that he didn't get called. You can't keep doing that now. You got eyes on you, but yeah, he's certainly, I think, in their head. That's why I think you should go back to him. I don't think they do.
They have to go back to Swayman. Come on.
I don't think they
Allmark
will tonight.
You don't think they will?
They've been pretty adamant that this is what they do. I thought they would have gone back to him in game 2. They didn't, and it's like whatever they do what they do. I don't know. Have we seen enough? I don't want to say separation between two. Linus Allmark was not bad. He was good in that game.
He was good,
but they lost.
He was good.
Yeah, I don't know. I
has been great.
Yeah, in his numbers in the regular season too. I mean, I would go back to him. For some reason, I still think they go back to Allmark. I don't know.
What do you think, Shane? I liked going to Allmark in game 2, and I don't think he played himself out of the net at all. I think Swayman's played his way into the net in game 4. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I think you go back to Swayman. Really, can you go wrong? I guess would be the other side of the coin. Like, I mean, Allmark played well enough for that team to win that game. Just so we can get the search engine optimization stuff going on, I'd like to touch on the Leafs a little bit here, because I'll hold my hand up and say I was wrong. Before the series, we all talked about the fact that these guys live and die by controlled zone entries. Who is first in these playoffs in using the dump in to gain the zone right now? Anybody?
Who is it?
It's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
We're in a bizarro world where Carolina's at the bottom and Toronto's at the top.
I know. It's like, we're in some alternate reality at this point, but they have changed the way they're playing. They've dominated this Boston team at 5-on-5. And I honestly feel bad for these guys, because for years, me, Mike, basically the whole analytics community has been, saying, great job, you guys. You're killing the chance game. And eventually one of these times it's going to go in your favor. But a couple people said, look, they carry the puck in too much in the playoffs. They finally are doing something different. And here we are. And they just cannot get a break, because they're going up against the best two-headed combo and probably, the best single goalie in this playoffs at this point in time. So I feel bad for these guys, man. I know everybody likes to pile on Toronto, but I got to give people kudos when they adjust, and they have. And, I kind of hope that it works out for them. But it's been interesting.
You're right. They have. And I think for too long, they tried to play a certain way and would just fall back on, well, look at the chances. And it's like, that's not it. It's the situational play that kills your game. Not to toot my own horn, but of course I will. I have successfully predicted the Maple Leafs first round result for like 7 years in a row, going back to when this core was assembled, including the win that they got last year. So
so you went on the money all the years that they lost, and then the 1 year you're like, they're going to win. They did.
I picked Columbus. I picked Montreal. I picked Toronto to win last year. I know this team pretty well, I think.
So what did you pick? You picked Boston this year, didn't you?
I did. But again, real close. And to Shane's point, I agree where it's like this team is playing a little different than they have in years past, and they haven't made the big mistakes at the wrong times that have killed them in years past yet. They haven't done it. It does look to be a little bit different. 2 goals per game in the series, expected goals 3.94 per game. Now I just feel bad for you, because you're doing a lot of things the right way, and it seems like you've learned some lessons. And Swayman especially, but Allmark too, but you're getting killed by these guys. These goalies are killing you. So I think, again, Max Domi, good on you, man. Knock the guy over and get in front of him.
Be careful. Be careful, though.
You won't be careful. You can't do that again, like you said, Rupper. But get in these guys' kitchen, and you're trying to deflect a shot and you fall on them after the whistle. Oops, what else are you going to do? Because you're getting the chances. You're out playing the Bruins for good chunks. There's a lot to like.
I like what we've seen from the Leafs. I love the last game, and I know a lot of the analytics community is probably going to tell me to shut up because they don't want him doing this. But I love Austin Matthews getting physical. Like he's hitting everything. I love that side of him. He's in it with the boys, and when he's in it with the boys, like that's galvanizing in that room. I don't think this team's and I don't think you guys are alluding to this. I don't think that team's done by any stretch. Like that. That
Yeah.
this is a Leafs team that I think battles back in this series. I will say this though, and it just to nitpick them a little bit because, like you guys said, they've answered a lot of different things. I still think managing emotions because you're trying to compensate for something that you're not. They haven't been all these X, Y, and Z things over the years. They've added these pieces, and now those pieces and everybody's trying to be like, oh, we're different now. Just make sure you don't overcompensate. Don't forget who you are. You just have to push back in different ways at different times. The one thing though that gets me with them still, I hate to say it, I just feel like every time there's a mental aspect of a game or a series, they just always seem to make the wrong decision, right? It's always like the wrong thing. And what like an example of it is that the delayed penalty last game. Why are you letting the Bruins go back and just eat the clock so they can get that power play longer for them to start the next period? And that ends up obviously turning into a very big goal. You know what I mean? And it's like, it,
Mm.
is nobody on the ice or on the bench screaming to force the puck out of their hands? You know what I mean? Like you that stuff drives me nuts, guys. I'm watching it at home and I'm thinking to myself, is this serious? Like you're just backing up and letting this happen. And sure, you didn't know it was going to turn into a goal, but it did. And I find that every time there's like a mental decision to make, they just make the wrong one. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, that's it's something that Boston never really seems to do, right? And Toronto's kind of, you'll see a little bit more of it. The PKs also, and we'll save this for another day, but people talked about the penalty kill coming into this series, and they're talking about it after 2 games because it hasn't been very good. I think like if the PK ends up,
3 games.
yeah, sorry, 3 games. I think
just
if
so we prove that we looked.
yes, it is 2-1 Boston. If the PK ends up being like a problem by the end of the series and they don't win, is it time to start thinking like Austin Matthews should be on the penalty kill? He's one of the best defensive forwards in the league. He's like got Barkov elements in his game. He's big, he's physical, he wins battles, he blocks passes, he's got good instincts, all these things. Maybe he doesn't score 69 goals next year. Maybe he scores 59 goals, but you have a better option. I don't know. It's something for another day, but just a thought.
Yeah. I'll tell you, we'll talk about it more later. I would never use him on the power play or penalty kill, I should say.
You should use him on the power play, Rupper.
Yes. Power play definitely should have him out there. Probably the full 2 minutes of every power play all year. Penalty kill, I would use him just because he's the best goal scorer in the world. He's going to, at the end of it, I think he might be the best goal scorer of all time.
Yeah.
I can't risk that. And if your team is not built to have specialty guys to kill penalties that are actually good at it, then the people up top should not be in charge. That you need to ask the best player, best goal scorer in the world to kill penalties because he is good. I think he would do very well. But that's bad. That's bad management if you're asking Austin Matthews to go do that.
All right. Fair point. Last one. We don't want to ignore the Vegas and the Dallas fans out there. Again, flipping the switch. Didn't really think it would happen this way. But yeah, Vegas looks pretty darn legit. Like, is Jonathan Marsh still the quietest 40 goal scorer in the league this year? That guy's humming as he always does. He's such a money player. Mark Stone coming back, looks fully healthy. I think he had a lot of time to recuperate. Looks really good. And I did not think that Vegas would be up 2-0 going back into Vegas. I did not think this at all. And here we are, Shane. Like, what do you got on that series?
Yeah, this is a funny one. I think I kind of highlighted by accident the thing that might decide this series when I was giving them credit for playing so well all year without really getting good goaltending. Well, now you're only ever playing against a really good team in the Vegas Golden Knights. And if the series is going to be like 51-49, 52-48 in your favor, when your goaltending is as bad as Jay Gottinger has been all year, that's a really bad problem to have. Like, he's not going to steal a game for you, right? So right off the bat, he's not going to steal a game. So you have to be on for 7 games or less. And he's also not even really doing a lot to keep you in games. Like, he's been so bad so far in this playoffs that I'm really worried about these guys because they're carrying the chances at 5-on-5. Like, we have them way up over 50% XG, I think 53.5 at 5-on-5. They're doing a lot to generate offense off the rush. Their cycle game has been really, really good. They've been the Dallas Stars, but they're going up against a team that is as complete as them. And oh, by the way, actually has solid goaltending.
Yeah. They Vegas is back, like you said, flipping that switch that last year on that run, it was so hard to get to their net. And that's why Aiden Hill thrived. That's why Logan Thompson during that year thrived. That's why Laurent Brossoit thrived. They're really hard to get to the net. So if you do get in there and you get one chance, guess what? Your stick's going to be eliminated. You got a body between you and the net for your second chance opportunity. They've kind of taken the knees out of this Dallas offense, right? The offense isn't great. They're not taking a ton of penalties, so they're not giving Dallas a way to find offense on the power play by getting touches. It's a master class of playoff hockey, and that's what that team does. And just a question, and I'm not meaning this to come down, but I picked the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup because you know what, and some of this too with Shane. You said it when we're going over the awards, and you mentioned Pete DeBoer for Jack Adams, and I'm like, you know what, never thought about that. Like, that is a great option because of. This is a team that they almost won the President's Trophy. They didn't get good goaltending. Their best player in some regards, Jake Ottinger, was not good. We talked about that. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, they've got everything. They check every box. And they're not dead yet. And they've got a tall task ahead of them. But I started thinking to myself, like, have I overvalued Jake Ottinger? Is Jake Ottinger really, really good? Like, or is it that series against Calgary that just threw us all for a loop because we never really seen anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's a good goalie, but is he elite? I mean, we're waiting for him to be elite at the right time, and I don't know if we're not getting that.
He's shown it in spots, right? Like, that series was through the roof, and he's had other spots in his career where he's played at that level, and you're like, yeah, he's up in that conversation. But I've always kind of had him in the same conversation as like Demko, Markstrom, maybe not the top 3 guys, but kind of that next tier of a really good goalies. And Demko for me has pushed himself now into the top. I know he's hurt right now, but if this kind of goes the way it's been going and Dallas has done this in the first round, I don't think you can put Ottinger after this season in that conversation anymore. We know the ability's there. We know it comes in spurts.
Yeah.
But given how big of a stretch we've seen this season where he has not been average, I don't think that you can have him in that conversation anymore.
My problem is, like, if you're Dallas, what more can you do? They have basically given Vegas almost nothing at 5-on-5.
Yep.
I mean, you've kind of done the part where, when you talk about that Colorado team from a couple of years ago that killed everybody because they never – gave up the puck. And that was how they prevented the other team from generating any offense. This Dallas team, by what I can look at and by watching the series, I think has been the best defensive team or one of kind of the best 2 or 3 in the playoffs. And even still, they're down 2-0 because Ottinger is just fighting the puck so much. I mean, I'll be honest, like, I've always kind of thought he was a slightly above average goalie he's like the Derek Jeter of the NHL. For years, Derek Jeter was on every Sportsnet highlight clip because he was making
minus the championships.
But but he was making those crazy throws where he was launching himself from the other side of second base and jumping in the air and getting guys out. And then eventually it came into the public consciousness that you're like, oh yeah, he's doing that because he can't get to any balls. So the ones that he does get to look incredible because he's making these crazy throws, but like most second basemen are just there already. That to me is almost Jake Ottinger. Like, it's a lot of flash, not a ton of substance.
So to bring it back to hockey, Shane hates Tim Thomas and Dominic Hasek and thinks they're terrible goalies.
No, because they had both. They had flash and substance.
Yeah.
I love those guys. They're
Hey.
the best ones.
And just full transparency, for our behind the scenes producer Kirsten, you're dead to her right now because you said that about Jeter, by the way. Just letting you know. She's gonna
I'm
give
not
you
saying
shit. I'm
Jeter's
just
not an
saying.
incredible player. Incredible player. Declined massively defensively by the end of his career.
True. Well,
Oh.
let's end it on baseball and Shane making a new enemy who has the power to edit his clips to make him look like a jackass. So I like where this is going, fellas.
I don't think she needs to do much editing.
Fair point. Fair point. All right. Well, look.
Hey,
We'll,
boys, real quick, just real quick on it. Hey, if you had to pick one series to flip or one go longer, I mean, we've got 2 3-0s right now. We've got a 2-0 with the Rangers Caps. Like, is there one that you think's going to go to a game 6, 7, or you think they're all going to be done prior?
I still think Dallas Vegas has 6 games in it or longer. I don't think Dallas is dead.
Boston Toronto goes 7.
Yeah, that one goes 7 for sure. But
Yeah,
I like that one. I like that one with Dallas. I think the world of Dallas. I really, really do. It's just Vegas, man. Right now, jeez,
it hurts me.
They're tough. But anyways, all right.
see ya.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Until next time.